Hello, and welcome to the Christian Faith Publishing Author Roundtable. I'm your host, Chris Baker, and for the next half hour, we'll be speaking with several very talented authors about their newly released books, what their inspiration was for creating their unique stories, and why it would be a great book for you to read and share with your friends and family. This next story on the Christian Faith Publishing Author Roundtable, I think, is going to be great in finding courage through life's storms. The book is called My Last Name is Grace by author Beatty Miller. Beatty, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Chris, for this opportunity. It's great.
Now, tell everybody a bit about your book.
Well, My Last Name is Grace. It's a play on words. It's a novel that is actually based on my memoir. I was born in the middle of Amish country in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and then raised in the most conservative old order Mennonite, which means they rode horse and buggies, and that's the upbringing of my dad. It's the most legalistic area in Pennsylvania. And of course, by the grace of God, my dad decided to be rebellious, and he broke away from the horse and buggy upbringing because he wanted to drive a car. So as I say, by the grace of God go I. This book, My Last Name is Grace, is my spiritual journey and transformation from dreading to have to join my parents' church, having to wear the head covering, knowing that I would be made fun of in my public school. So that's when my rebellion began. Ending today with a woman who is whole, healed, and filled with understanding about God's awesome grace in my life, finally.
Now, what made you decide to take what you had gone through? Because I'm located here in Western Pennsylvania, so the Amish and the Mennonite communities, we've got some of them over around here, which has always interested me, what that life is like. What made you decide to tell about that and your place in it and your story and essentially coming out of that?
Well, my purpose was that I needed to clarify why Nana and Mom was married 3 times and the why behind it. And I also realized that, yes, my kids and my grandkids saw pictures of me wearing the head covering and great-grandma wearing one, but I don't think they understood that, some long time ago, some church elder interpreted a verse out of 1 Corinthians 11 and based a church doctrine on it. And I knew that my story had to be told because, if you don't pass them on, they die with us. And I want my target readers, maybe it's not 3 marriages for you, but, many people in our spiritual pilgrimage have regret. They made life-changing choices that affected loved ones. And, we have to sit in those results of those choices. And, and then following that church legalistic doctrine, do's and don'ts, having to listen to hell and brimstone sermons, it took its toll. And so for years I walked away from God, thus my second marriage. But there's hope because I became a generation changer. I was the first one in my family to graduate from high school because, higher education was frowned upon. And today I'm still shunned by some of my family members. And, I say, as much as one church hurt me, finally another church healed me.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to be able to tell your story and put it out there in a book form to share with everyone?
It was great. I had no idea where to begin. My creative writing teacher, who, of course, encouraged me to write my book along with my husband, her publishing company had folded. So I Googled the top 10 Christian publishers on the East Coast, and Christian Faith came up. They were listed with the grade A. There was no bad reviews, and the rest is history. They were excellent to work with. Now,
is this something you'd like to do again, maybe another book in the future?
I am. I'm working on the story of my hairstylist's life. She was raised in the poor cotton mills of South Carolina, but it's her spiritual pilgrimage and how she, in the 80s, was raised very poor and how she was the first one to graduate in her family and her tragedies of her life. So yes, once you have the writing bug, you have to keep on going, and I am, by the grace of God.
Now this one, My Last Name is Grace. When people read it, what do you hope is the most important message they get from it?
Well, I hope that they too can realize that they need to rise above. A lot of people are suppressed and oppressed and burdened by the religious upbringing. And I truly, just as myself, I hope they truly get a fresh handle on God's amazing forgiving grace.
I'll tell you what, I think this is going to be a great book of encouragement for those who read it. And I encourage everyone to pick up a copy. The book is called My Last Name is Grace by author Beatty Miller. You can get your copy today online at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, as well as the brick and mortar stores. And Beatty, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Now on the Christian Faith Publishing Author Roundtable, Roundtable, a very interesting book about maintaining faith throughout all of life's circumstances. The book is called He is Faithful by author Joanna Butler. Joanna, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now tell everybody a little bit about your book and about your story.
He is Faithful is about the faithfulness of God to a young woman during a very dark period in her life. She is a believer. She was born a believer. She's known Jesus all of her life. But something that hit her life, it really just knocked her sideways to where her faith, as it progressed, as the problem progressed, her faith decreased until it was almost no more. Yeah, it's about the faithfulness of God during that time that, she didn't think she would ever recover.
Now, what inspired you to write this? Was it things that had gone on in your own life? Where did you draw the inspiration for this story?
I drew the inspiration from a song, actually, a song that I heard years ago called He's Been Faithful. And God dropped the story in my heart, and it took me a long time to actually write it, but I got it from a song called He's Been Faithful, because I have to say that He has been faithful to me, and during my dark times as well.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to have this story and this message that you want to spread? How was it working with them to get this book published?
Well, I say it was wonderful. In the beginning, it was a challenge, but they made me feel comfortable. It was stressless, and they kept me informed of every step that they were going to take, and I really appreciated it because, like I said, it made the experience easy, actually. It made it easy for me and not stressful, because I've heard that it could be, but not with Christian Faith Publishing.
Now, is this something where we may see a follow-up to this, maybe a sequel, see where this character goes after this story, or do you maybe have something else you'd like to write about in the future?
I am going to write a follow-up. Actually, I'm working on it now, to be honest, and I do plan to write more books on just different aspects of the attributes of Christ, His goodness, His faithfulness, His abilities, His power, His healing, and so on.
Well, excited to talk to you about those books in the future. Now, this one, He is Faithful. What do you think is going to be the target reader for this? Who do you think is going to get the most out of reading this book and this story?
I actually believe just about anyone who is going through a dark time in their lives. Sometimes the circumstances looks bigger than your faith. It looks like it's going to pretty much take you out. But I believe it can target anybody who is struggling to hold on when everything else is telling you to let go. There's a lot of negativity in the world, and, it's easy to just let go and just think, well, my faith is not going to help me in this situation, so I might as well just go with everybody else, when that's not the answer. Just hold on to Christ, because He is the only constant. He is the only thing that will bring you through whatever it is. It may take time. It's not work overnight. It may take time. It may take years. But hold on and trust Him, because He is the only one that you can trust.
And when people do read this, what do you hope is the most important message they get from reading this book?
Trust in the Lord. Trust Him. I know how it may look. It may even feel like, He's not here, or He's not listening, or He's not doing anything. But trust, hold on, no matter what. Endure with all your strength. He is faithful, no matter what.
I think that's an amazing message, and I think anybody and everybody goes through times in their life where faith may be hard and faith may seem like a struggle, but I think this book is going to be one that encourages people to persevere. And like you said, He is faithful and will always be there. And I think everyone should pick up a copy of this book. The book is called He is Faithful by author Joanna Butler. You can get your copy today at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, a few of the online sources, as well as brick and mortar stores. And Joanna, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
For anyone who's gone through a season in their life of brokenness, in need of healing and redemption, I think this next book is going to be perfect for you. The book is called The Heartache and the Healing by author Jen Miller. Jen, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Now tell everybody a bit about your book and your story.
The Heartache and the Healing is a story of how God led me through a very dark time of my life when my husband revealed to me that he was having an affair in January of 2011. The story details the events of how Christ spoke to me through my own brokenness, the healing and the redemption, the freedom in the midst of the extramarital affair. I think it details clearly how Christ helped me walk through those dark moments and see the trauma that occurred to our whole family, our children who were 8 and 11 at the time. It talks about the forgiveness process and even the mountaintop experience that Christ has carried us to now, that my husband and I are involved in marriage ministry. You're going to hear about how prayer and faith changed not only myself, but my husband, and also how Christ let me be redeemed and let go of being a control freak during the whole process. It teaches how I submitted to Christ, how I became my husband's cheerleader, and even how I set healthy boundaries and not just walls that were not able to be torn down during the process.
Now, what made you decide to write this? Because this is of course, a very trying and personal experience that you and your husband had gone through. What made you decide that you're going to take what you had gone through and put it in a book so others could maybe learn from your experience?
Well, during the whole process with all the counseling and the friends that supported me through it, I just felt this calling from Christ that it would be ridiculous for me not to share my story and help others be able to learn from it. I began writing all of my thoughts during 2011 when the affair was going on into a spiral-bound notebook, and my thoughts were very jumbled, and my life at that time was a mess. And I wrote all those thoughts down so that I wouldn't forget what was happening. During that time, Christ helped me so much and taught me so much through all the counseling that I went through. So the first half of the book is really just a journal of all the events that occurred that year. The second half is the story of all the things I learned during counseling, the scripture verses that I applied to my life and still apply. And I feel as though the process culminated 3 years later when we were in North Carolina, now where we live, and God just started revealing to me through multiple friends in marriage ministry, I really should start writing a book or blogging. It turned out that I tried to blog, it didn't work, so I submitted my story to Christian Faith Publishing.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to be able to get your story out there in book form?
It's been wonderful. They have done everything for me online, and I'm originally from Pennsylvania, so it was nice to find someone in my home state. I've been able to do everything online, and it's been a breeze. They've helped me through every process along the way with editing and all of the details. I have never published a book before, so I needed a lot of help, and they've been there all the way.
And when people do read this, what do you hope is the most important message they get?
I hope more than anything that they realize the spirit of power, love, and a sound mind that Christ has given to every believer. And it's not just in me, it's in all of us if we just believe in Him and put our trust in Him.
Well, I think this book is going to bring a lot of hope to people going through rough patches in their marriage, and I think it's going to bring a lot of light to people who maybe aren't in that situation, but know somebody who is in that situation. And I think it's going to bring, of course, as the title says, healing as well. The book is called The Heartache and the Healing by author Jen Miller. You can get your copy today at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, a few of the online outlets, as well as the brick and mortar stores. And Jen, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Now on the Christian Faith Publishing Author Roundtable, a book I'm really interested to find out more about. The book is called Opportunity, The Lemonade of Life by author A.J. Posner. A.J., thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now, tell everybody a little about your book.
I am a person with a disability. I'm legally blind, and it basically is a life story giving some of the events, if you will, that have made my life a success. I've talked about the successes, the failures, the difficulties, and so forth. And basically, I would like others with all forms of disability to realize that they can be successful in life, and non-disabled people to realize that the opportunity is really what's necessary, and they have a big part in that as well.
Now, what inspired you to write this? What made you decide that you were going to take your story and the things you had gone through and turn it into a book?
Actually, there are three reasons and three main points or themes within the book that I would like to present. Firstly, when life gives us lemons, we must learn to make lemonade. But with a little bit of effort, that lemonade can be bitter or it can be sweet, depending on what we do with the opportunities. Within the disabled community, the opportunity is really the key to success, but the disabled person needs to seek out those opportunities or make their own opportunities. They don't come knocking on the door. Encourage others with disabilities and normal people. Basically, this is the way to create more opportunity for more disabled people. The third thing, which is kind of my philosophy of life, and that is to be accepted into mainstream society. And to be accepted into mainstream society, the disabled person really must need to learn to blend. They need to dress, to act, to socialize as normal to the best of their ability, to blend into society. I think the objective is they want to be recognized for their abilities, not because of their disabilities. We are all a part of one society, and we need to work with one another and integrate. And the objective, if you will, is that people with even the most severe of disabilities can integrate into mainstream society.
Now, when somebody reads this book, Opportunity, The Lemonade of Life, what do you hope's the most important thing they get from it?
I think the disabled population can view this as a factual success story. It talks about the successes as well as the failures in life, but ultimately you can succeed. I think the non-disabled person needs to realize and can, from this book, understand that disabled people are very functional, if you will, and can be very productive in our society, that they need to be recognized for their abilities as opposed to because of their disabilities. And the non-disabled population can play a big part in encouraging opportunity, encouraging the disabled person to move forward, encouraging potential employers, parents, teachers, what have you, to work with this population to bring them to fruition.
I think this is an excellent book, going to be an excellent resource and provide a lot of hope and inspiration for those with disabilities and for those who don't have disabilities. Be very eye-opening and really create a level of understanding, I think. The book is called Opportunity, The Lemonade of Life, by author A.J. Posner. You can get your copy today, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, online, or at the brick-and-mortar stores. And A.J., thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
And now on the Christian Faith Publishing Author Roundtable, a book I'm really excited to talk about and find out more about, because this is one of those books that I think is going to bring encouragement to a lot of people. The book is called Crossing the Borderline, Journaling a Journey from Madness and Mayhem to Faith and Forgiveness, by author T.R. Lilly. T.R., thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Now tell everybody a bit about this story.
Crossing the Borderline was created out of journal entries that were expanded. When I was 26 years old, I was misdiagnosed as being bipolar type 2 and correctly diagnosed with something called borderline personality disorder. And this book is about finding your way back from all of that.
Now, what made you decide to take the journaling aspect of this and then turn it into a book? And what made you decide that, because I got to imagine that taking things that you've gone through is, a very personal thing, and to be able to share that with others. How was that process as well?
Well, it all started with me going to my pastor and knowing that I had come as far with everything as I could on my own, and he recommended a therapist for me who happened to specialize in everything that I had going on at that moment. And I started doing journal entries, and in an effort to be transparent with everyone, I would send my journal entries to both my pastor and my therapist. And once things started to turn around for me, they really encouraged me and pushed me forward into writing the book. And you're exactly right. It's a lot of stuff that most people don't put out there. But what I've found is the more that you talk about things and the more that you bring things to light, the more comfortable it is. And no one should ever have to be embarrassed to ask for help.
Yeah, I was going to say, with mental health, and that sort of topic is really kind of at the forefront, it seems, these days. It probably one, I imagine, had to be kind of therapeutic to be able to put that out there and really, give other people, I'm sure, a sense of that they're not alone. Is that kind of what you had intended?
Absolutely. And there's even more of a stigma that surrounds the borderline personality disorder, because for a long time it was kind of considered a catch-all diagnosis. But it doesn't matter where you're coming from. You should never have to be embarrassed to talk about what you're going through and ask for help. So, that's the big push behind it.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to have this book that, like I said, I think it's going to bring a lot of encouragement to people going through situations similar to yours. How was it working with them to finally be able to have this book in your hand that you can share this story with everyone?
It was amazing from the point of doing the presentation to them to have them look through it and see if it was something that they wanted to work with, to dealing with my publication specialist who coordinated all of the efforts, everything between the editors and the cover art and the typesetting and everything in between. It was just a very smooth process, very easy to work with them.
Now, when people read this, Crossing the Borderline, what do you hope is the most important message that they get by the time they finish reading this?
Just that they're not alone, that anything you go through, there's some aspect of it that touches everyone's life. There's not a person that I know of who isn't touched by issues of mental health or emotional health. And I hope that they see that it's a full process, that it's not just talk therapy or it's not just medication or the spiritual component, but that it's all three combined in one.
Well, I'll tell you what, like you said, I don't know anybody, myself included, that haven't been affected by mental or emotional health or know somebody that, is dealing with that sort of thing. And I think this book is going to be an excellent eye-opener for all involved. And like I said earlier, bring a lot of encouragement for those dealing with this, that they are not alone. The book is called Crossing the Borderline, Journaling, A Journey from Madness and Mayhem to Faith and Forgiveness by author T.R. Lilly. You can get your copy today at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, a few of the online sources, as well as brick-and-mortar stores. And T.R., thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
Now on the Christian Faith Publishing Author Roundtable, I think this next book is one of those books that's going to make you go through the gamut of emotions, but I think at the very end of it, it's going to be an inspiring book to read. The book is called A Memoir, Take a Deep Breath, Life is Not the End, and Miracles Do Happen by author Janelle Reese, MD. Janelle, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, tell everybody a little bit about this book, because this is essentially your journey through life and how you became a doctor, and tell everybody a little bit about that.
Well, that's right. It is a memoir, and basically I chronicle both my personal as well as my spiritual journey of being, a daughter, a wife, a mother, a doctor, and even as a patient myself. The second half of the book is full of spiritual stories, not only my own, but also of friends, family, and even patients. And they include such things as life after death experiences, messages from loved ones who have passed, and even miraculous healings. Whereas the first part of the book is more of those deeply personal stories of my life. And Chris, frankly, some of those stories my best friends did not even know until they read this book.
To do something like that, to bear all those very personal things, probably had to be a tough decision. What made you decide this is something I'm going to do? This is something I'm going to write and put out there for everybody?
There was actually two events back to back that inspired me to write the book. In the year 2000, my husband had a heart attack and he had cardiac arrest on our living room floor. And he did have a life after death experience. He did survive. And there was some profound things that happened during that event. And then just a couple months later, even more importantly, I had a sister-in-law who died of pancreatic cancer. And there was something that not only I, but several people at the time of her death that we witnessed that truly convinced me that this life is not the end. And I knew at that moment that wasn't meant for me to witness just for myself, that it really could bring great hope and comfort to other people. And I knew at that moment I would write about it. So the deeply personal stories, I felt it was important to include those because really the message of the book is that no matter what you struggle with in life, if you have your faith in Jesus and God, really nothing can harm you, not even death, because this life really isn't the end. And we can live in eternity with Him. And so I think that message can bring hope and comfort to people, and they can take a deep breath and have a great sense of peace if they realize that.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to have this, like you said, this deeply personal story to tell, and then to finally have it on the page that you can share this with everyone?
They were so great to work with. I was a first-time author, and they assign you an agent, and mine was Leslie, and she was awesome. And Leslie took me through the process step by step. It was organized. It was seamless. She answered my calls or texts or emails very quickly. And on the other hand, they were very patient with and flexible with my schedule, which I greatly appreciated. And so it was just a wonderful experience the whole way around. And I would highly recommend them for anyone who is considering publishing a book.
When people are finished reading this, what do you hope is the most important thing they get from it, the most important message?
Really that it's all in the title, that we really don't have to be afraid, that we can calm our fears because this life isn't the end, and God is with us, and miracles happen, and if we put our faith and trust in Him, we can have that great sense of peace.
I think that is an excellent message, and I think a message we all need and should take to heart. The book is called Take a Deep Breath, This Life is Not the End, and Miracles Do Happen by author Janelle Reese, MD. You can get your copy today at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, just a few of the online platforms, as well as the brick-and-mortar stores. And Janelle, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Christian Faith Publishing Author Roundtable. We'll be back next week with another great group of talented authors to discuss their books, their process, and how they were able to get their manuscripts published and out there for the world to enjoy. If you're a writer that is looking for a book publisher, give Christian Faith Publishing a call today at 1-800-955-3794 to receive a free publishing kit, or feel free to visit them on the web at ChristianFaithPublishing.com. Have a great weekend, everyone.